Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me for this explainer today. We're looking at something just mind-blowing. It's one of the most fascinating technological anomalies ever found in the archival records of what we call Universe 01. We're talking survival, extreme geology, and an alternate timeline that literally takes everything we think we know about human progress and throws it right out the window. So let's just jump right into it. Welcome to the incredible world of the Magma Smiths. What if humanity forged carbon steel before we ever even invented the wheel? I mean, really think about that for a second. It sounds completely impossible, right? Like a total historical paradox. How could an early society possibly have the advanced metallurgical chops to forge high-grade steel when they haven't even figured out the basic mechanics to, roll a cart? Well, setting up that exact central mystery is what we're tackling today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the traditional tech ladder.
To truly wrap our heads around the anomaly of Universe 01, we kinda have to understand the baseline first. Usually, humanity climbs a very structured, linear technological ladder. You know the drill. We start at step 1, the Stone Age, then we move on up to step 2, the Bronze Age, and eventually we graduate to step 3, the Iron Age. Now, in our universe, this whole progression is driven entirely by agricultural surpluses. You grow enough food, you can feed specialized labor, and then those specialists actually have the time to sit down, build kilns, and figure out how to mix metals. That's the established rulebook. But, as you'll see, in Universe 01, this rulebook doesn't just get ignored, it gets completely burned. Which brings us to Section 2, a world without charcoal. So here is the fracture point of our story. We're stepping far away from the comfortable, warm agricultural hubs of our own history and heading straight into the brutally cold, completely treeless environment of Ice Age Iceland. And this perfectly illustrates why the Bronze Age is an absolute physical impossibility in Universe 01. In our universe, the math is simple, right? We had forests, which gave us charcoal, which gave us the sustained heat we needed for furnaces, which finally let us melt copper and tin to make bronze. But in Universe 01, an Ice Age environment means absolutely no wood. And no wood means no charcoal. Without charcoal, those traditional kilns and furnaces just literally cannot exist, meaning they can't melt copper or tin. So the Bronze Age isn't just delayed here, it is skipped entirely, no way around it. Which leaves us looking at this unbelievable, mind-bending reality. We're looking at a society that is technically stuck in a pre-pottery era. Think about that. They're out there surviving in the freezing cold without even the luxury of basic, baked clay pots to store their water or food. Yet somehow, this exact same society is simultaneously on the very verge of touching highly advanced metallurgy. That leads us right into Section 3, forging with liquid magma. So the obvious question here is, how? If they can't even build a fire hot enough to bake a simple clay pot, how on earth are they forging metal? Well, what's so fascinating is the sheer geological luck, or actually maybe the extreme danger of where they ended up. These human clusters didn't have forests, sure, but they found themselves sitting directly on top of the open volcanic fissures of the Asia Fault. And right there, just sitting totally exposed on the surface, were incredibly rich raw materials. We're talking dense deposits of bog iron and vast open stretches of obsidian glass. They literally had the raw ingredients right at their feet. They just needed a way to apply the heat. And boy, did they ever find the heat. 1,200 degrees Celsius. That is the blistering, extreme temperature of the slow-moving lava rivers just bleeding right out of the Ajga Fault. Instead of trying to invent a furnace to melt their surface iron, these early clans came up with an incredibly dangerous, almost unthinkable workaround. They carved crude molds out of stone, placed their raw bog iron inside, and then just submerged those molds directly into the glowing, viscous 1,200-degree rivers of lava. I really want you to just pause and let the poetry of that realization sink in for a second. As the source archives put it, the earth itself acts as the forge. They didn't need to chop down a single tree or invent bellows. They bypassed human-made infrastructure entirely and simply injected their molds straight into the bleeding molten arteries of the planet itself. But, as you might know, intense heat is only half the equation when it comes to metallurgy. If you want to make a strong metal, you have to cool it rapidly. And the violent 1,200-degree heat of the magma is perfectly contrasted by the freezing extreme sitting right next door, rushing sub-zero glacial meltwater. The clans would pull their glowing stone molds out of the slow-moving lava rivers, and then immediately temper the molten iron in this freezing glacial runoff that was flowing right alongside the volcanic fissures. And here is the absolutely crucial point. This brutal, extreme environmental combo, direct magma injection followed instantly by glacial tempering, didn't just give them some usable iron, it accidentally yielded a remarkably advanced material, carbonized steel. They created an ultra-hard, shock-resistant metal that is leaps and bounds superior to anything produced in our traditional Bronze Age. Essentially, the brutal environment did the heavy lifting of thousands of years of human metallurgical trial and error, all by accident.
All right, let's look at the results in Section 4, Steel Before the Wheel.
The astonishing, honestly paradoxical results of this violent technological leap defy all conventional logic. Because of their magma forging long before traditional milestones were ever met, these people were suddenly armed with a highly advanced arsenal. We're talking high-grade steel harpoons capable of hunting massive game, thermal-retaining iron plates to survive the brutal Ice Age cold, and heavy obsidian carving tools for detailed work. They are equipped like a highly advanced society. But we've got to juxtapose that advanced arsenal with this blunt, undeniable fact. The wheel and the clay pot have not been invented yet. They are walking around with high-grade, shock-resistant carbonized steel harpoons, but they still have to drag their massive hunts back to camp completely on foot, and they don't have a single ceramic bowl to drink from. It truly hits the nail on the head regarding the sheer paradox of their technological state. The ultimate takeaway from the archival records of Universe 01 is just profound. In this timeline, innovation wasn't born from the comfort of agricultural surplus, and it wasn't carefully developed by specialized labor in some thriving, peaceful village. It was violently forced into existence by the very architecture of the tectonic rift. The extreme environment didn't just passively shape their daily culture, it fundamentally hijacked and accelerated their entire technological destiny. And that brings us to the end of today's explainer, leaving us with one really provocative, memorable thought. If our environment truly dictates our evolution, what advanced technologies might we, in our own timeline, have entirely skipped over, simply because our planet didn't force our hand? Definitely think about that the next time you look at the history of human progress. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.